What's happening, people? How are we doing? Today I'm going to take you through some weird slash unusual slash rare exercises that are either part of my routine now or have been at some point. A lot of them will be just variations on exercises that you have seen before, and some of them you probably haven't seen before. Either way, they're all good for getting massive like me. Let's do it. First exercise we're going to do is going to be for the front delt. All we need is a set of narrow cables. We're actually going to use these cables for quite a few exercises. Need a bench set to an incline, like so. Alright, so what I'm going to do is do it. Okay people, so what I'm going to do here is set the bench to roughly a 45-degree angle and lie face down on it. The handles are attached to the lowest point and the bench is set forward a little bit. This is essentially a cable front raise variation, but lying forwards on the bench gives you a couple of advantages over just standing. One is that your torso is fixed in place so you can't move around during your set, and the other is that you're able to keep your torso at an angle that you wouldn't if you were standing. So by the time you hit the top of the rep, when your arms are parallel to the ground, you've been through a greater range of motion than you would have if you were stood upright. For the next one, what I'm going to do is actually just flip this bench around. So I took the handles off here because if you keep them on, when you cross over at the bottom, you find that they all get caught in each other. That's what we call a block, mate. It's the hassle one. It's not the kind of hassle you want to be dealing with when you're trying to make gains. So, full handles. So again, with these you have the advantage of the bench keeping your torso fixed in place, which is something that can be difficult when you're doing rear delt exercises. You'll see people lying forward on a bench like this and doing rear delt flies with dumbbells, but the advantage of using cables is that the angle of resistance means that you're actually working for a greater portion of the rep than you would otherwise be. And that's true of a lot of fly exercises, and I suppose it's why cables can be so useful. I think in general, rear delts can be quite hard to isolate for a lot of people, and that's unfortunate because they're also quite an overlooked body part and they can make a big difference to the overall appearance of your back and arms, and I suppose that's why I'm such a big fan of this exercise. I started off doing these rear delt cable flies, stood up, and then I realised that I had a tendency to kind of rock forward, so I feel like anything, if you can use chest support or anything, then do so because it'll just help isolate more. So that's why we use the bench. But you don't have to if you don't want to. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. You don't have to lift if you don't want to. Alright, let's do the next one. Alright people, so next up what we're going to do is a substitution for the classic dumbbell lateral raise. I often find that doing my dumbbell lateral raise, I feel that my front delt comes into it a lot too much when ideally I want to just be targeting my medial delt, and I find a way to do them on cables that just feels a lot better. Feels like I get a lot better actual isolation on the medial delt, and it takes a lot of my front delt out of it because of the plane of movement that I'm moving in. But I'll show you. So again, narrow cables. So this is a bit of a weird one. Essentially, I was doing dumbbell or cable lateral raises, and I was feeling like my front delt was doing a lot of the work and my medial delt wasn't really getting as much as I'd like it to. I found that if you step back a little, so you're not just bringing your arms directly up to the side but also back, it felt like it took a lot of the front delt focus out of the movement. Now, it might not even be that it focuses less on front delt and that is working less, but just that your medial delt is working more from the slight change in the angle of resistance. So this one's pretty hard to demonstrate visually, so if you're going to try any of these exercises, I would urge you to go and try this one as a priority and experience for yourself how superior it feels in terms of medial delt activation when compared to classic lateral raises. So again, like before, I've got resistance for like the whole rep, as opposed to with dumbbells when you're only really getting resistance when it hits about there. on your lateral raise. Here to here, you're not really doing much at all, but obviously with cables, direction of resistance means that you're getting it from full rep. See your right when you see it. See your right when you see it. What's happening, people? So next up we're going to do essentially what is just a dumbbell split squat. We're going to use this decline bench. It is infinitely better, and I will show you why. The thing you need is a heavy-ish dumbbell. This part is like essential, otherwise you might die. Basically you need a counterweight, because otherwise when your foot is resting on that end, this bench is going to come up. And then you might die, and then you'll sue me. I don't want to get sued, so use the counterweight. In fact, maybe I should put a disclaimer, just no one sue me. You also need a weight to stop that counterweight rolling away. Preferably one with angles, right? Alright.
So there's two main reasons why I like to do these on a decline bench. The first is that the pads where you place your feet are round, so your foot just fits nicely on it, and it makes it a lot easier to balance and just more comfortable in general. The second reason is that you can adjust the height of it so it's more suited to your frame, whereas if you adjust the height of a normal bench, it's not going to stay flat. So these are small things really, but if you find a movement uncomfortable, you're obviously going to enjoy doing it a lot less, or you're not going to do it at all. And it would be a shame to miss out on the benefits of what I would consider to be one of, if not the best leg pressing movement for overall upper leg development, just because you can't find a way to make it comfortable. If you can persevere to a point where you're comfortable balancing with quite heavy dumbbells, this can have all the benefits of a traditional squat, but potentially with a greater range of motion, a more symmetrical distribution of work between each side, and much less stress on your spine.
Alright, so next up is going to be another leg exercise. This is one that I actually was shown years and years ago, back when I was like 16, 17, starting out in the gym, and it was what bros call a finisher. So basically it means something you do loads of reps on, it burns like fuck, and if you love bro science, you feel like you're getting bigger off it. I'm going to show you anyway, because it is good for people who can only do like body weight squats and stuff like that. So I'm going to take this bench, I'm going to flip it upside down. I'm going to put my feet inside here. I'm going to tuck my toes under here. Jump. I'm just locked in, man. And I'm going to sit right back. Squat, mate.
So first thing to mention with these is make sure you've got a counterweight or a person stood on the other end of the bench so you don't die. Now, I like these because you can change the level of difficulty just by adjusting your position a little. So if you lean a little bit further back, you're essentially shifting weight towards the end of the lever, making it a much less efficient movement, which essentially translate into it being harder for you. If you're somebody who likes to do drop sets and things like that, you could do this in a way just by starting off leaning further back and then moving to a more upright position as you go through your set. So instead of reducing the weight, you're reducing the level of resistance by changing your position.
It's more like a leg extension than an actual squat, because you're barely like pushing yourself off. Your glutes aren't really coming into it. It's almost another quad isolation, which is pretty fucking sick, because in terms of your options for quad isolations, you have none except leg extensions usually. So it's just fucking ruthless, man. So I'm pretty much just bending at the knee, arms even coming into it. It's like an extension, man. Like those funny videos where people fly off the extension machine. Alright people, next up we're going to do a lat prayer, which is an exercise that people will have seen me doing if they've been watching a lot of my older vlogs, because it's a good way to isolate your lats if you have any kind of like bicep issues. I had a bicep injury for a good 6 months, and it was pretty much the only thing I could possibly do to try and still get some kind of stimulation on my lats.
So there's typically two ways people do these: either stood up and bending over into it, or kneeling, which can feel better if you're going a little bit heavier. That being said, I prefer just to do these sat on a bench for no reason other than it feels more comfortable. And you can also lock yourself in place by pinning your feet under the bench. So you're just keeping your elbows slightly bent but locked so that that angle at the elbow doesn't change throughout the rep. And this is as close to a lat isolation as you can get, really. You're obviously involving rear delts, rhomboids, traps to some extent, but it at least gives you an option if for some reason bicep flexion is an issue.
Alright people, so for this exercise all you need is a Smith machine and possibly that's it, or possibly a bench as well. We'll see, a couple of variations. I'm just going to put my hands pretty narrow. Now, the narrower you keep your hands, the harder it's going to be. I'm going to try and keep my elbows in as well. I'm just going to keep my body straight and fall under it. And then extend with the tricep. So it's essentially, it's like a tricep skull crusher, except it's without the risk of crushing your skull. Which is ideal, man.
This is another exercise where you can change the level of difficulty just by adjusting your position slightly. So if you imagine the easiest version of this exercise to be akin to being almost upright and just pushing yourself off a wall, and then the hardest version would be almost horizontal and like a press up but with your arms out in front of you above your head. So basically, the more horizontal your body is, the more of your weight your triceps are having to overcome to extend. So you can either adjust the height of the bar to adjust the angle, or just step on a bench. Again, you could use this to do a kind of drop set and just become more upright each time you need to make the set easier.
Yo people, that is Joey D's top good bit different exercises that you might not have seen. Hopefully you learned something. Try them out. Don't kill yourself. Don't sue me. Let me know if you make gains. Just credit me. See you later.
They see me rolling. They hating. Joey Delaney is my hero.